What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the Apple TV Plus original series, Dark Matter. This will follow episode 7, which is called In the Fires of Dead Stars, which is once again directed by Roxann and Dawson. Okay, plot conveniences. Stuff that happens that seem unplausible, unrealistic, and in the basis of to move a plot story along, and just happens when it's frustrating. It's infuriating. That's where I lie on this episode. This episode is full of plot conveniences. It's full of, oh my God, things are happening now, and it just conveniently happens so that this can happen, which, storytelling is like that. Sometimes you have to have some plot conveniences. I just never knew a whole episode could do that to the extent that this 7th episode of this series does. And I have to say, as much as I enjoy the emotional impact of what the story does in this episode, there's too many plot conveniences. There's too many points where things just happen to further another plot down the line. It infuriates me. To be fairly honest, it's so frustrating to watch an episode have so many things happen that coarsely affect another thing that's going to happen 10 minutes later that it just seems convenient. It's oh my God, this episode is frustrating. It really is, because we have to get to a point where Jason 1 has to get to his world. It's going to happen eventually. How it happens, we weren't entirely sure. Now we know. And how he gets to that point, it seems like they were painted into a corner, the writers, especially Blake Crouch. And whether the book does this or not, I have no idea. But wow, it's convenient, isn't it? That, of course, Ryan, who has disappeared, is now, because Jason 2 has gotten rid of him, now the police are involved. That's very convenient, because, that's not as convenient as something that was going to happen eventually, because a guy disappears, and the last person to see him was Jason 2. That's going to be something that happens. But in order to get things correct, because, of course, the police are going to suspect Jason 2, what does he do? What he is kind of out of character. I guess it's not really out of character, but he breaks down the concrete wall of a thing he just put up. I don't know if this takes place a few months later or weeks later, because now it's Christmas or whatever. But he breaks down that concrete wall of the door to go retrieve another Ryan who's a drunk and owns a shop, to bring him back to keep him off the suspicion list. And that's on top of everything where, Daniela 1 finally tells him that she followed him to the storage unit. She found that vial. He explains the vial is to kind of corrupt the senses, or not corrupt, but take down things to basically on a micro level, superposition level, way things work, I guess you could say. It's kind of like if you had the ability of what Superman does, or somebody who could slow down time and slow down the microorganisms and watch them, which I thought was a pretty cool kind of explanation. A little bit easier to understand on superposition, but once again, it's more layman's terms than what even I understand. But so he goes to get another Ryan, brings him over, washes him up, cuts his hair, puts him in bed. He's really drunk. But the idea that now the wall is broken down, and then on top of everything, Amanda 1 was never going to stay with Jason 1. But the simple fact of they have very few vials left. She is trying to explain to him once again how to get back to his own planet or his own universe or whatever. And they end up in this, what I would call the perfect version of this world, this Chicago, this cold fusion and instructed, very against what certain people think type of world, because there is a skyscraper and a restaurant that's in the Obama building, which might upset a lot of people. And of course, there is a gay couple that notices that Amanda and Jason have this chemistry together, which is kind of a touchy moment. This is a world where everybody kind of sees on the same level, which is what is much a play on what we should be doing instead of what we are doing at this moment. We should be going for that cold fusion, that world that is, greener and filled, as we see, this is very similar to the world that is in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, a world that is a much more utopic society in a lot of respects. And there's a lot of stuff there. I like when they see the kids and they drink the hot chocolate and they see everything is more environmentally sound and everything is much more idyllic in a lot of respects, is what I kind kind of wish I could live in a lot of respects and that kind of nature. But, it leads to the other convenient plotting point where Amanda, when they're eating up in this tower, she decides she's going to stay because she found out the Amanda of this world has disappeared. Okay, fine. So she's going to stay there. Therefore, she's going to leave Jason 1 to get back to his own world. And I kind of figured that this was going to happen eventually. I didn't expect it to happen in episode 7, but this clearly is either Amanda, who he gives a couple vials to, even though she says not to, is done in this story. She's going to go off and live her life in this new utopian society, or she is going to realize she has the vials and she's going to get back to Jason. And I don't know. It is probably the end of her story, which is really okay, sure, end it here. Whatever is going to happen is going to end eventually, where either in this episode or the very last episode, she was going to go off and do her thing, and Daniela 1 and of course Jason 1 are going to get back together. It's one of those things, but it's a very plot convenience problem where now she's able to move out of Jason 1's way, never be a conflict again for Jason 1, and go off and do her thing. And of course Jason 1 goes off and finds a world that is very similar to his own, and of course he talks to Daniela, whatever, multiverse Daniela, on the phone, apologizes for his mistakes because he's not a perfect person. He almost does what Jason 2 did, where he almost takes out this Jason in this world, and then he comes across his son Charlie, who apparently did something that caused someone to die. I don't know. Probably the girl that he really liked to end up dying, and it makes him realize that what is most important. And he writes this in the book, and it's actually very very potent and very special what he writes. But the thing that Amanda 1 had been telling him is you got to go beyond just the outer layers of the human being, the person. You got to look what makes them special. You got to look what makes the world special. What in this world is the thing you need to focus to make everything what is the perfect moment for you? What is the perfect place for you? What is it about this world that you live in is the thing? And he figures out, it's like that one moment, and it's very similar to in the movie Watchmen, where Dr. Manhattan relives the moments leading up to where he becomes Dr. Manhattan. In this point, it's like a moment where he met Daniela, and there was this perfect moment where he realizes that he would go anywhere with her. He'd go to a museum. He would do anything for her. And that is the moment when conveniently he has the last vial, and conveniently he finds his own world, which is what has been kind of leading up to. So I don't hate that moment, but it's so much convenient plotting that it's just like, okay, he opens it up. He finds, of course, the vial on the ground. He finds, of course, the concrete entrance tore down because, of course, Jason 2 had tore it down earlier to pick up a different Ryan. I mean, yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about it. I appreciate the last episode, all the comments you guys been posting. I have been reading them, and so it has helped me on the superposition thing. But I kind of want to know if this bothers you at all, if it feels way too convenient, because there's a point at the very end which is so convenient that it actually lowers the score of this entire episode, which really infuriated me. I know I've said that before, but it infuriated me to the point where I question where this series is going to end when it comes to Jason 1 and Jason 2's confrontation. We all knew that it was going to happen. There's going to be a confrontation, but how is that going to happen? And on top of everything, what has happened to Leighton 2 or Leighton 1, the first Leighton we met in, of course, Jason 2's world? What happened to him? He hasn't been in like 2 or 3 episodes. Is he dead? Did he kind of give up? Is he going to show up at the very end, which is another plot convenience? Like, I don't know what's going on, but it feels like there is a structural script writing problem that Blake Crouch and his writers can't seem to figure out, and that they had to do this plot convenience because it was the easiest route. And after last week's superposition episode, that you can't rely on that. You have to go above and beyond the nature of what that plot at the end of that episode did, because it kind of takes down all the kind of craziness of like, oh my God, he barriered up the wall of the cube. What is Jason 1 going to do? Oh no, later on in the next episode, oh no, he just tore it down with a hammer. Jason 2 just tore down the idea of how Jason 1's going to get back in this world. And it just, I don't know, maybe I'm not the world's best reader when it comes to script writing, but I can see plot devices and I can see plot structuring pretty well to understand that they were either in a corner, they didn't know how to get Jason 1 into this world, or they really just took the easy road out, to be fairly honest, which makes me wonder what's going to happen in episode 8 and 9 of this series. And I got to preface this by saying I don't think this episode is bad. I think there's moments in here which are really provocative and thought-provoking. The stuff with Amanda and Jason when she decides she's going to leave is very touching and very heart-wrenching, because Amanda knows that Jason needs to get back to Daniela. That's the kind of if, ands, and buts about it. She's not not his Amanda, or not. He's not her Jason. It's not her world. She's no longer of the world that she came from because of all the problems that they've gone through. So she has to go find her own self. And I don't have a problem with that. It is, like I said, once it could be convenient that the other Amanda disappeared, which leads into some other really weird storytelling elements when it comes to Amanda just shows up after she disappeared. I don't know. I mean, she talks about all the different things that, the passes and the fact that she has good credit, which I actually laughed at a little bit, but I don't know. It's really weird. And then of course, Jason 1 finds Jason 2 at his house. It leads to the idea that Jason 1 goes to a gun shop, which it makes sense because he wants to end Jason 2 or confront Jason 2 at some point with a gun and stuff like that. He tries to get a gun. Of course, there's laws, as there should be, to get a gun. It's really kind of a weird thing that which I don't know. I don't have a gun. I don't own a gun. I don't know anything about getting a gun and stuff like that. It's just one of those things. But the fact that he's so insistent on not really learning about any other guns, he's like, oh yeah, I'll take that gun, that Glock right there. It's like, oh, okay. Well, you need your card, the Illinois gun card, the one that proves that you can have guns. And he's like, oh, I don't even know what that is. And the whole gun law thing, this is what this is harping on. The whole gun law thing is just out of whack because of the simple fact that, he can go in there and act real weird and out of place. And the gun owner, the gun shop owner, or stuff like that doesn't really bat an eye. But then he goes towards pepper spray and a knife. And he gets a couple of those. And once again, the gun shop owner has probably seen a bunch of people like this before who don't really know about guns. That's not the major problem, because, if I went into a gun shop, they've explained this, and this. I definitely understand. They'd probably be less suspicious of me and stuff like that. But the nature of the fact that he leaves is not the problem. It's the fact that the Jason 2 comes in 20 seconds later, saying wearing the exact same clothes with the exact same backpack, everything the same outside of the little finger that the gun shop owner points out that's broken. And she's like, okay, did you change your mind on the gun? Was there something wrong with the knife? He's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, you were just in here 20 seconds ago. He's like, no, I wasn't. And then we find out that he realizes what's happening. The problem is not the fact that he finds out what's happening. The problem is that he goes to the exact same gun shop as Jason 1. The exact same gun shop. There are a million gun shops in the city of Chicago, in the state of Illinois, like any state in the country. He just happens to go to, if you have any reasons or logic behind this, that's perfectly fine. Maybe it's like the closest gun shop, I don't know. But he goes to the exact same gun shop 20 seconds before Jason 1 was there, or 20 seconds after. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my entire life. The most ridiculous plot convenience plotting I've ever seen in my entire life. And completely baffles me on how that choice was made in the script writing process. Once again, he's going to find out that Jason 1's in his universe just on the simple fact that it's going to happen, or Jason 1's going to confront him. That would have been a lot better plotting, because it would have been much more intense, would have been much more stress-inducing, would have been much more just kind of crazy than walking into the same exact gun shop 20 seconds in between, realizing that Jason 1 has entered the world, which leads into the other plot convenience of he tearing down the concrete. I'm sorry, but that's insanity. That's ridiculousness. And I know it's crazy for me to complain about it, but that's insanity. You can't have that plot convenience. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have any logical reasoning, because all it says is you don't know how to continue this story. I appreciate Blake Crouch's story. I appreciate the story in general, but this just is a complete letdown of an episode. This is a complete, just what is going on? Why are you going this route? What are you doing? And I'm just baffled. I'm baffled by why they did this and why it's where it is and how it plays out like it does. And then you know, I understand, like, you know, the police detective and all that stuff is, it makes sense. You know, the police detective is researching the last person that would have seen Ryan alive. And of course, you know, Daniela confronting Jason and telling him that they just don't seem to be on the same page anymore, which leads to so many suspicious moments with Jason and how he acts. And you talk about how he's going to make dinner and stuff like that, which is something that I'm assuming Jason 1 never does. But those convenient plotting moments really ruin the episode and really frustrate me. And for a series that I really, really like, I hope this isn't how it continues. I hope there isn't plot convenience after plot convenience after plot convenience, because it will be a problem in my book. It will lose steam for me and interest for me, even though I'm going to finish out the series. It is not justified or reason of logic of why they would do this. And it just feels like an episode that stretched out didn't really need to happen, to be fairly honest. It just, if once again, Amanda could have just left at the end of episode 9, gone off and done her thing. I do like the moment between Amanda 2 and Jason 2, where he kind of shows her he knows a lot about her and why she's a therapist, and she gets really upset and sends him out. It's a way for Alice Braga to have a moment. How long she'll be in the rest of the series, I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I have problems so much with that, what they did in this episode. So overall, to kind of conclude, it was definitely a failure of an episode. It was definitely a frustrating episode. It was not a bad episode, but it is an episode that has so many plot conveniences that it just didn't work at all for me. And once again, you might work for you, but it didn't work for me. So I'm going to give the episode a 5 out of 10. The 5 is only because the acting is pretty good and some of the story beats are pretty good. But for an episode that really did what it did, I'm sorry. Roxann and Dawson, you did a good job directing it, but, you know, it is what it is. So 5 out of 10 is my take on episode 7, which is In the Fires of the Dead Stars. Really weird title for this episode as well, but whatever. So anyways, with that said, that'll do it. That'll be my take on episode 7 of course, Apple TV Plus original Dark Matter, now on Apple TV Plus. Comments below. Did you like this episode? Did you not like this episode? If you think what I think, let me know why. If you liked it, tell me why, all that good stuff. Otherwise, if you like what you see on the channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. As always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.